Welcome to Binge Breakthrough, the podcast designed to help you finally break through the barriers that keep you stuck feeling out of control around food. I'm Master Certified Coach Jane Pilger, and I want you to know that no matter how long you've been struggling or what you've tried, food freedom is possible, and I'm here to show you how. After years of therapy, eating disorders treatment, restrictive diets, and reading all the books, I was still stuck in the on-again, off-again cycle of restricting and binging until I was able to see it all from a new perspective that changed everything. Each week, I will share the strategies, tools, and mindset that allowed me to overcome my decades-long battle with binge eating. Your journey to body trust starts now. Let's dive in. Hello, trusted listener. Welcome to Binge Breakthrough. I consider you a trusted listener because I trust that you are listening to this podcast for a reason. I trust that you are going to hear something today that is insightful and impactful on your journey with food. If you've been listening to the Binge Breakthrough podcast for a while, you know that I believe that there are 8 reasons that people binge or eat in ways that they don't prefer. Those 8 reasons are outlined in some of the very first episodes of this podcast, and they are this: shame and judgment. Reason number 2, restriction. Reason number 3, a dysregulated nervous system. Reason number 4, disconnection. Reason number 5, a coping mechanism. Reason number 6, the attempt to control. Reason number 7, habit. And reason number 8, negative self-talk. But at the end of the day, there is one thing that each of these reasons have in common. And it actually is one of the reasons listed. It's this: disconnection. I believe that all binge eating comes from disconnection of some sort. Disconnection from our bodies, disconnection from our emotions, disconnection as a result of nervous system dysregulation. Disconnection from the internal dialogue and the inner critic that can be so loud sometimes. And disconnection from our true physical and emotional needs. Think about this for yourself. Think about the last time that you binged or that you ate in a way that felt out of control or in a way that you don't prefer. Bring that to your mind. Can you see that time, that moment, that experience with food was a way to disconnect from yourself or your experience in some way? If this is the case, if it all does come down to disconnection, and what we do with food is we're disconnecting from ourselves and our experience, then ending binge eating truly comes down to one word: connection. Connection is as close to a magic pill as you are going to get. Now, it's not as easy as taking a pill and all of a sudden you're connected and voila, you have no problems disconnecting with food again. It doesn't work that way, unfortunately, and there really is no magic pill. But this is as close as we're going to get. The idea, the concept of connection. This gives you a place to focus, something to put your mind to work on. Connection has to be cultivated. It's a skill. It's something that's learned, and it does take time to cultivate connection. If you disconnect with food, and I'm guessing that you do sometimes because you are listening to this podcast, there is a very good reason. It likely comes down to 3 main things. Number 1, your nervous system. Number 2, years or decades of dieting and ignoring your physical needs, of overriding the signals, the natural signals from your body. And number 3, the beliefs about yourself and about your body that you have internalized over your lifetime. So think for yourself. Do you resonate with this? These three things. Perhaps your nervous system. Maybe we have some disconnection, some dysregulation in your nervous system. Maybe you have years or decades of dieting and ignoring your physical needs. Or maybe you have a lifetime of internalized negative beliefs about yourself and your body. Here's the great news. This is not a life sentence. You can absolutely develop connection with yourself. And I want you to know this, when you are connected with yourself and you're honoring your physical and your emotional needs, you won't need to disconnect with food. It's a simple answer, but it's not a simple solution. I am constantly learning and I'm constantly gaining new skills and new knowledge so that I can support myself and my clients. And in my own journey to overcoming binge eating, the thing that made the most difference in going from someone who binges and someone who feels out of control with food was learning about the nervous system and learning how to develop safety and trust with myself, with my body, and with food. And this is the work that I do with my clients. Now, I've recently come to realize that it literally all boils down to this one word. It all boils down to connection. So I decided to create a resource to explain step by step why we disconnect and how to cultivate connection. It's a deep dive into the nervous system, trauma, how to heal, relationships, powerful questions, and a library of resources and support so that you can expand your capacity to connect with yourself instead of disconnecting. It's far more than I could ever share here on this podcast, but I wanted to share this basic idea with you. It all comes down to connection. So if you are listening to this, how can you apply this to your own journey? Number one, notice. Just notice when you are disconnecting from yourself, especially with food. There is so much power in noticing it and naming it. When you can notice it, when you can name it as it is happening, what you're doing is you're giving yourself space. You're giving yourself space to see that it's happening rather than just getting caught up in it. You're able to be the witness of it. You're able to observe it rather than just being caught up in it and not even realizing anything until after the fact. Here is a very important fact for you to know. You can reconnect at any time. Now, you might have a story for yourself that goes something like this. Once I start, I can't stop. I have to keep going. I have to keep eating until I physically cannot eat another bite or until all of the food is gone. I want to invite you to change this story. And you can do it with this powerful sentence. I can reconnect at any time. You don't have to keep eating. You don't have to keep going. You can reconnect at any time. Here is a powerful question that you can ask yourself. What would connection look like in this moment? When you notice that you are disconnecting, when you start to see, this is it. This is where I am starting to disconnect. Ask yourself, what would connection look like in this moment? Now, you may not always be able to connect with yourself. And if that is the case, there are other ways to connect. You can connect with a loved one, particularly someone who feels really safe, really supportive to you. You can connect with nature. Go outside. Some people love being out in the trees, in the mountains, near water, whatever it is, you can connect with nature. You can connect with a pet. If you've listened for a while, you know I have a stuffed animal, my giraffe, Ginger. I connect with Ginger sometimes. When I'm not ready to connect with anybody else, but I want some connection, I connect with my stuffed animal. You can connect with me or someone else you like to listen to. Find a favorite podcast episode or even a favorite song by your favorite artist that you know when you listen can or might possibly help bring you in to a more connected state. You can do a guided meditation. Find some favorites. There are so many resources out there for guided meditations. Find some favorites that you can turn to during times of disconnection. Inside the Connection Collection, I have created and recorded several guided meditations to support you through various times to create that connection. So many of my clients, they love listening to my voice. They say, oh, if I could only listen to your voice more often, if your voice were in my head instead of that mean, harsh, critical voice I hear so often. That's why I've created several guided meditations so that my voice can be in your ears. And if you're not a client, if you're not inside the Connection Collection, you can still create this by listening to this podcast. Connection is a skill. It takes time to develop, especially if you've been disconnecting from yourself for a long time. If you want support to develop the skill of connection for yourself so that you no longer need to disconnect with food, the Connection Collection is an incredible resource, and it's available to my private and group coaching clients. This isn't a do-it-yourself type of thing. It's something that requires connection and support from an external source so that you can cultivate that connection and support inside. Ultimately, you will be able to connect with yourself and provide that support for yourself internally. But if you haven't been able to do that, it is very unlikely that you will be able to do that without the support of someone else first. So I encourage you to find support for yourself so that you can learn how to connect. If you want to learn more about the Connection Collection, about how life could be different for you if you no longer needed to disconnect with food, reach out to me at janepilger.com/connect. I'll leave a link in the show notes as well. And I want you to know this. If connection is difficult for you, there is a very good reason. It will probably take more than simply listening to a podcast and focusing on the idea and the concept of connection. But here is what I do know. The brain is a very powerful thing. If you focus on cultivating more connection, your brain will go to work to create it. Remember, the reticular activating system is your brain's filter. It's what decides what to focus on. So you can intentionally focus on cultivating more connection. And if you need additional support to create more connection for yourself, that makes sense. It makes sense that you would need that external connection first to get that example, to get the resources, to get the support you need so that you can ultimately connect with yourself. And you won't always be able to connect with yourself. Those external relationships, the external support is a very important part of the overall process of connection. None of us are meant to do life alone. If you are trying to do this journey with food and trying to heal your relationship with food on your own, it makes sense. It is hard to do on your own. But there are people out there who can help you. This is not a life sentence. You can absolutely cultivate connection so that you won't have to disconnect with food. You don't have to do this alone. In fact, I would say very few people recover from binge eating alone. Cultivating connection means connection with external sources and support, along with internal resources and support. So put your brain to work on creating more connection for yourself. Connect with me here on the podcast. Make sure you are subscribed to The Peaceful Eater on Substack so we can stay connected on a weekly basis. And if you want additional support to cultivate connection on a deeper level, reach out at janepilger.com/connect. All right, that's what I have for you today. Focus on connection. Remember, you can reconnect at any time. I'll see you next week.
If you like what you're hearing on the podcast, you will want to be sure to follow me on Substack. There, you'll find additional articles, discussion, and a library of all of the podcast episodes to help you on your journey with food. You can also access deep dive workshops and get behind the scenes audio and video that will help you understand and overcome your food struggles. Find me under The Peaceful Eater at janepilger.substack.com. I'll see you there.